Good morning. This is Nicole Mangina with Windermere Real Estate, and this is the 425 Show, your place to be for all things real estate and lifestyle related here on the East Side. Because we all know that buying and selling real estate is about so much more than bedrooms and baths. It is about the people, the places, the businesses, and the events that ultimately create the community that's the backdrop for our whole lives. And usually we're mixing it up a little bit today. Usually I have a guest and we chat about what they do and what they love about the 425. But today we're going to talk a little bit more about real estate, because one of the biggest things that comes up is how do you find the right agent, right? There are many different agents out there. And it's really important that you find the right person for you. There's a lot that goes into that. You know, I've been doing this for 22 years. And I'm not going to say I've seen it all, because I certainly have things come up that surprise me on a daily basis. But I have absolutely been in scenarios, in transactions, where the other agent made a huge difference, a positive difference for their clients. Sometimes all the difference in the world between them being successful or not. I have also seen the opposite and thought, you know, oh my goodness, this poor person, this buyer or seller, you know, gosh, even if they don't use me, I really hope they decide to use someone else, because what they've got going is not the right fit for them and will not allow them to be successful. So, and certainly if you are thinking about buying and selling real estate, I would love the opportunity to chat with you. You can always reach out to me. My email is nicole@nicolemangina.com. We can always set up a time to chat. If you happen to be out of an area that I don't work in, I can always refer you to someone else. But let's dive into this a little bit more today. Whether you use me or somebody else, I want you to have some really good tools so that you can know going into it that you have made the right decision so that you can be successful. You know, there's really two parts to finding the right agent. There's a competency piece and a chemistry piece, because a good agent is not always the right agent for you, right? There's competency, which means, you know, they know the market. They know your specific type of thing that you have, right? Do you have a condo? Do you have a house? You know, do they know that area? All of these things go into competency. Do they know the market cycles? We're going to talk about that today too. You know, in a 12-month period, there is a market cycle that happens. And the conversations that I have with a client in June, which is where we're at right now, are very different than the conversations I might have in February, and different than the conversations I would have in October. So do they know those cycles specific to where you're at? And, you know, how often do they work with buyers and sellers? Are they up to date on the, you know, the conversations that are being had? Their company, I do think company matters, quite honestly, because it's the brand and the image that it brings to the industry. So there's the competency piece, right? And somebody may check all the pieces from all the items on the list from a competency standpoint, but then there's still the chemistry part, right? And the chemistry is that connection, and that is essential to build. You've got to trust this person, right? You are entrusting them with a really big, significant, and emotional part of your life. You know, real estate is fascinating in that, you know, I have worked with many executives over the years, and they, you know, they've probably negotiated, you know, contracts bigger than I'll ever hope to negotiate, right? And whatever they have going on in their life, they've done things with bigger dollar amounts, probably bigger consequences, but a business negotiation is different than a real estate negotiation. It is as emotional as it gets. And I have, you know, those executives that then when we go to do their real estate transactions, whether it's buying or selling, it's really hard for them to filter through all of this stuff because they've got these emotions going on. And, you know, the old adage of, you know, oh, you shouldn't get emotionally involved in a real estate transaction goes out the window, because the reality is this is your home. This is where you're going to live. If you're a buyer, you know, it's going to create the backdrop for the next chapter of your life. Or if you're selling, you know, you have all of these memories tied up in it. And it's a stressful time. You know, when they come out with the list of, you know, the most stressful situations in life each year of, you know, they kind of stack rank things, and there's usually buying and selling houses almost always at the list. And then there's job changes and, you know, marriage, divorce, kids being born, kids leaving the house, all of those things real estate's kind of at the top of the list. And it could be a good thing, right? I'm talking about it being really emotional. They could be all super amazing, wonderful emotions that you're going through right now that are facilitating your next move. But the reality is there's just a lot going on. And it's easy to get caught up in that emotion. So having an agent who is kind of the eye of the storm for you and can keep things going in the right direction that will ultimately get you where you want to be is really, really important. So we've got competency and chemistry. Both of those are really important. And then we're going to talk about those a little bit, and then we will dive into, okay, so now you've got the criteria, how do you go find this person, right? Because that's important too. So let's go back to competency. And having somebody that knows your market. It is really important that you find somebody in your specific area because all of the neighborhoods are different. Perfect example is where we live. We've got the Seattle market, right? And then we've got the East Side market. And, you know, the East Side includes areas like Bellevue and Kirkland, Redmond, Sammamish, all of those surrounding areas, Woodinville, Issaquah, all of it. Those are very different real estate markets. The types of properties that are sold are very different. You know, Seattle has a lot of the older properties, the early 1900s. There are different things that you need to know about selling one of those properties versus, you know, something that's newer over on the East Side. So just structurally and condition-wise, there are different things that they need to know. How offers are written and negotiated are different on each side of the lake. And there are also different agents. One of the things that your agent can bring to the table is their network within the agent community. Once you've been doing it for a while and that agent can really know the different agents out there and they have a good reputation, then a lot of times they can get the inside scoop one way or the other. That ends up being really helpful for you as a person. So it's really important that you hire someone that knows your specific area and can show you a track record of sales in your area with your type of property. The other is knowing the market cycles. This is something I really want to dive into a little bit today because it is so important. Like I said, what you do in January is different than June. It's different than December. A typical market cycle is January is your get ready month. Right? Everybody's coming off the holidays. People are starting to think about doing things, you know, in the coming year for real estate, whether it's buying or selling. But they're just kind of wrapping their head around, okay, we're in the new year. Kids are back in school, getting back up to speed on work, you know, catching up from whatever it is they had going on in December. But they often start talking to real estate agents for listing their homes. And usually when a property goes on the market, there's a process, right? It takes a couple weeks to get a house or a condo or whatever it is ready. So that starts in January and buyers kind of start coming out of the woodwork. And then in February and March and rolling into April is when the market is the hottest. Most of the appreciation actually happens in the first half of the year. When you look at year-over-year appreciation, it does not divide out evenly over a 12-month period. In fact, Alan Pope is the most respected appraiser in the area, and we will have the links to all of his data on the website. If you go to NicoleMangina.com/podcast, then you'll be able to see those charts. But what he does is he goes in and tracks that. And I just was in a meeting with him, and he talked about, you know, for the last 12 months that there was 14% appreciation, but really, if you break it down, the last 5 months, which were the first 5 months of 2018, experienced 2% appreciation a month. But the last part of 2017 only had 4% for the whole time period. So that's, you know, for almost 7 months, there was only 4% appreciation, and then we've had 2% a month. So it's really important to know that. And then what that means is in February and March, there is the lowest amount of inventory, the highest amount of buyers, which equates to the highest fear of loss for buyers, which works out really well for sellers, right? That's when you start hearing all of those stories about, oh my goodness, we had 10 offers come in on our property and we went so far over the asking price. And that's when that really starts happening, and you see prices start to escalate. So again, that's kind of February, March, and April, which is interesting. It often defies logic. Most sellers think, oh, I should wait till June, right? And July in the summer, that's when the sun's out and the yard looks good and all of that kind of stuff. Really, you've kind of missed the boat if you wait till then. The first part of the year is where you want to be out doing things. And then, for buyers, you can jump into the mix at that point in the year. Sometimes you can still get a great house, but you're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops to get it. And you're going to need an agent who can really talk you through that to make sure that this is the right time for you, and you have all of the tools that you need in order to write a competitive offer at that point in time. And then we roll into April, and then really it's kind of May and then June. And the market shifts a little bit at that time. It's really kind of Mother's Day, Memorial Day, and then as we roll into June, what you see happening is a number of things. One, we have more listings come on the market, so there's just more to choose from. And it's coming on more regularly, which diminishes that fear of loss for buyers, because something might come on that they're excited about and they write an offer, but they're not as panicked about not getting it because they're pretty confident something else will come on the next week. Might be better, might not, but they know there's going to be an option there. Whereas in February and March, they're convinced there aren't any other options other than the one place that happened to come on that week. So buyers start to realize there's more options, and they also kind of I call it buyer fatigue. You can only ask so much of buyers, I think, in any market for only so long before they start to push back and realize, I'm not comfortable waiving all of these things or going this far over the asking price. And they just start to, they put curbs in. They'll still compete, they'll still write offers, but they start to take a step back and take a breath and reevaluate things before they're willing to jump into that. You also see a lot of people start overpricing as sellers. So you see a lot of price reductions happening in June, and then you'll see them as we roll into July as well. And then people start to panic. Oh my goodness, does that mean the market's turning? Doesn't mean the market's turning. What it means is, as a seller, when you're pricing a property in any market, there's always a range, right? There's never one magic number. You do your analysis, and there's always a range for what you think your property is worth. And in different markets, you do different things. When the market was slower back in 2008, I would advise sellers, gosh, buyers are not going to come in at full price no matter what you market your property at. So let's go to the top of the range, knowing that you will need to reduce that price because a buyer is going to come in below your asking price. So let's build in a buffer so that when they do, you still feel okay about that sales price. Very different in this market. Now there's a range, and if you price at the top of the range, buyers have been conditioned that they need to compete and go over that asking price. So if you come in at the top, then a buyer says, well, this is what I think it's worth. So I don't know that I really want to compete and pay more than what it's worth. I'll just sit this one out and let's wait and see how it happens. If you come in a little bit below that maximum price, though, now you're a great value and buyers are excited about it, and they start asking themselves, gosh, this is such a great value. What do I have to do not to lose? And that's when you start generating multiple offers and bids that go over your asking price, because the not to lose price is more than the what's it worth price, usually. So you need an agent who understands that and understands how that rolls into your specific property for the time of year. In June, it's very common that things either they might only get one offer, or if they do get multiple offers, it might be 2, maybe 3. February, March is when you get the 10 offers. June and into July, things calm down a little bit. The rest of the year-long cycle is August is always that month that, quite honestly, everybody's on vacation. It's beautiful here. Everybody wants to be out doing something fun. They kind of put house hunting on the back burner. If I have a seller who reaches out in August, unless they absolutely have to be on the market, my recommendation is always to wait until the middle of September. They usually come out much better at that point in time, because right in August, again, people are playing. If people have children, they're starting to shift into that back to school mode. And then things pick up the middle of September. The kids usually go back to school about Labor Day, and then it takes everybody, it's almost like a new year. There's something about the fall. It almost feels like a second new year, right? Everybody kind of re-evaluates where they're at with life and their resolutions, and they get back at it. So the market will pick up the middle of September through Thanksgiving. And that is another really good time to be on the market. People are motivated, you know, the year's coming to an end. They wanted to get this done for whatever reason. So I find that the second half of the year can be great for buyers. Sometimes there's not as many out there, but also really good for sellers. It's still not as crazy as that February, March timeframe. But the sellers that are out there, they're usually pretty motivated. The buyers are motivated, and there can be some great matchmaking that happens there. You know, and then you roll into December, and quite honestly, December can be a very busy month for me. So I wouldn't not list a property in December, but again, I usually kind of want to have it on the market by the first or second weekend. By the time you hit December 15th, unless you absolutely have to be on the market, my recommendation is usually as a seller to wait until January 15th. You know, do that prep work, do whatever it is you need to have done in order to do well in the market, but to go through that. So again, it's important that your agent know that and can kind of talk you through it specific to your property. And then the other is, from a competency standpoint, is the buyer versus seller. You know, I think it's important to work with an agent that does buyers and sellers, not in the same transaction, but then they've got a feel for kind of, you know, what are people saying, what's the mood in the market, that type of thing. So there you go. We've got competency covered. Now let's talk about chemistry, because again, that is very important. Your agent needs to have a style that matches with you. Me personally, I have a collaborative style, which means I believe I can absolutely work with my client as a buyer or seller and represent them and their full interests and get them a great outcome. But I also believe I can be nice to everybody. Like, I can be nice to the other agent. We can be respectful of the other party. And there is a solution out there that makes everybody feel good. Now, there are other agents that feel like if they have not brought the other party to their knees in tears, that they've left something on the table and they didn't do their job. If that's the agent you want, I'm not your gal. But you know what? That's the beautiful thing out there. There's lots of different agents, and you get to find the right one for you, right? So there's the obvious, you know, do you like them? And then there's also style from, you know, I view myself as an advisor. I'm not really a salesperson. I could probably sell you some shoes that you didn't want or need, let's be honest. But I can't really sell you a house you didn't want or need, because this is kind of a big deal. It's a lot of money. So I view it as you've hired me as your advisor to come in and talk you through the process, and that really my job is to give you all of the information that you need so that you can make the right decision for you. And then it's up to you as to what that decision is. But my job is to make sure that you have what you need to do in order to be able to make that happen. Which means I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to strong arm you into anything, but I will give you the options, and I will give you the possible ramifications of those options so that then you can feel good about what you're doing. So that's important. And then you need to trust their process. You know, a lot of us, we have very different processes, right? The way I list a property is very different from a lot of other agents. The things that I have my clients do to get, I call it parade ready, because it's that whole, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So there are a lot of things that I have my sellers do that other agents don't. Two specific things are, I include video on every property that is furnished. I don't do it if it's not furnished, because then it looks a little funky. But I do a video on every property. That tends to be important. And I have my properties pre-inspected, which is huge for buyers. I have found that often that helps us remove that inspection contingency, which for a seller is a big, big deal in terms of ensuring that your property gets to closing successfully and that you don't have to renegotiate things along the way, because there's nothing more frustrating than having to do that. So making sure that your agent has a process and that there's logic and a reason behind it, right? Not, I don't know, I'm just going to have you sign some papers, we're going to take some pictures, throw a sign up and see what happens, right? For me, there are very specific things that I do for my sellers, but also for buyers. The way we go through the process and the way our offers are written and the way I present and negotiate them. Even in a multiple offer market, there is a lot of strategy that goes into that. And I dive into that with my clients to make them feel comfortable, but then they also need to know that this is how we're going to get to your end result. So you really want to dive into that with your agent to find out, okay, what is their strategy? And does that work for you? You know, how successful is that for them? And then does that work for you personally? Is that something that you can buy into? Because that trust is so very important. So we've talked a lot about the competency piece and the chemistry piece. Now let's talk about, okay, you've got the information you need. How do you go find this agent, right? There's lots of different ways to find an agent. My business is almost always repeat and referral, which means it's clients I've worked with before, or they are referred to me by someone else or somebody I meet in, some kind of other avenue. So that's great, right? Because then you get a firsthand recommendation is always fantastic. So there's that, open houses are great. I love open houses because you can kind of go in and pre-interview somebody. I can always tell when somebody's interviewing me at an open house because they come in and it's a game I play, and then I can tell when they call afterwards. But open houses are great. Certainly you can do the internet, right? Lots of different services out there. I find that a lot of my clients, even when they're referred to me, they go and check out my website, which is wonderful because then they can see the properties that I've sold and make sure that we're the right fit. They can also see my videos and just make sure that, again, personality-wise, we're the right fit, and go forward from there. So let me check my notes here. I want to make sure I get it all in here. So you've decided who you want to meet with now, and another question that people often ask is how many agents do you need to meet with? What's the recommended number? And it's all over the board. A lot of my clients only interview one person, obviously as agents. We love that. But you need to just, more than anything, I think it's a very gut feeling of you got to feel comfortable with this person, and you've got to feel comfortable with their track record. And once you do, then I think you're in good shape. Then the important thing is once you've made a decision on an agent, you've got to buy into their thing 100%, right? So, what are the subtle ways, right, that you can know, is this the right agent? There's the obvious, you ask them questions, but I think there's the other things that are obvious, but we sometimes overlook, right? And I talk about this a lot when I train agents, which is, the basics. Are they on time? Did they show up on time for your appointment? Did they confirm the appointment with you? Did they take notes? I still do old school notes. I handwrite them because I want to make sure I remember things. And the reality is I can do my little scribbles with my pen faster than I can type things. If I type them when I'm in front of somebody else, I can't maintain as much eye contact. The devil's in the details, and you're going to find that out from the beginning. Are they paying attention, and are they really interacting with you? And can they articulate their competency? Again, they need to be able to explain to you what they're doing and why they're doing it. What are their recent sales? How did they get those results? What were those specific situations? And is there anything they would change from that specific situation to your specific situation, given your property and given the time of year? So before we wrap up today, I want to give you 3 questions to ask us if you're a seller, and 3 as a buyer's agent. As a seller, you want to see their marketing plan, you want to know their pricing strategy, and you want to know their method for getting your property parade ready. So those are 3 things. Again, we'll have these on the website. You can always go to NicoleMangina.com/podcast. If you're a buyer, the 3 things you want to ask are, what is your offer negotiation strategy? Even in a multiple offer situation, it's critical that an agent has that. What is your search strategy? How are they going to find the right property for you? Knowing that you probably have your own search set up already, but what are the other things in addition to that your agent can do for you? And how are they going to make sure that you have access to the full market? So you're looking for intention, you're looking for logic, and really at the end of the day, what you need to ask yourself is, you just met a stranger, potentially. At the end of all this, are you comfortable giving them the key to your house when you're not home? If the answer is yes, you have probably found the right agent. If the answer is no, you probably need to interview someone else. So thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate it. Again, we'll have all of these notes on the website, NicoleMangina.com/podcast. If you have questions about your specific property and would like to chat, or would like to a referral to an agent outside of the Greater East Side area, feel free to reach out. My email is nicole@NicoleMangina.com. Thanks so much, and make it a great day. Bye-bye.
Perfect.